Yeah, so here we go again. Hello there. I am Ben. This is Solo Therapy, my substitute for psychotherapy, where I drink tea and talk over my life for the sake of understanding it better. Um, First off, I have a correction to issue. Last time I'd said the label of a German doctor from the 30s and 40s, 19 that is, was not politically correct, and instead one was to label me functioning, of a kind, functioning autistic. I've since come to learn, due to at Bravo Romeo November 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 Tango Romeo November Tango Brunanant, that is also no longer politically correct. So I am, for all the sakes of labels, just autistic. I guess works for me. Political correctness is kind of a hard one. And actually, receiving that comment, as much as it was lovely, made me feel really rather old, because I'm out of touch with political correctness, man. It's kind of an odd thing, you know. Today's tea will be the usual Gyokuro Nakatani. 21 days in the shade before harvest. Fancy shit, but you know. I am dressed differently than usual. That's because I still got work to do. I got work to go to because I took the job. I got a job. Today will be my 4th day. So, 2nd day with any practical aspects. The first 2 which is theory, making sure I was up to spec. And will help me get up to spec for being able to do the job. And that's something, you know. I got some notes printed out, and today they're even laminated. There we go, you should be able to hear that. Because I got a laminator, and I figured I'd give it a try. And the notes seemed like might as well, you know. Also, thanks again to Mike for the comment for 188. This is 190. Very lovely comment, prompting the mind to work. Giving several examples, I'd like to add the example of apartheid, for example. The example, for example, here. Rule works are inherently not complete due to their being made by humans. I just doubled something again. Oh no. Which means rule works by humans, for humans, of humans, are unlikely to be complete. Interestingly enough, the example I've been using, which is the German rules of the road and speeding, account for this. Which I guess makes them closer to complete than some other rule works. I don't know. It's a fun one anyway, you know. I did actually, when reading that, come to a few examples of where I have significantly broken the speed limit. Only one of which would have been illegal, but that's years past, so no hypotheticals today. Admission of guilt, I guess. 3.5 years ago, I sped from my mother's to my father's real quick. Was at my mother's because internet and uni was happening over the interwebs. My dad hadn't been responding to any attempts of texting, phone, etc. Even tried the business phone. And I thought he'd died. Admittedly, he has since died, but still, you know. At the time, I thought he died. And I did speed quite heavily. I guess in this society, people just don't give a shit if someone speeds quite heavily, because the bar for events critical enough for people to speed quite heavily seem rather low. A lot of people speed rather heavily for, oh no, I'm 5 minutes late, which is, your planning does not constitute an emergency for me kind of scenarios, but you know. that I'm not proud of. But in the end of the day, I am human, and it was my dad, you know. So turns out he'd just been ill at that time. Died a half a year later due to the same thing, which was surprise. Had a heart attack beginning of the pandemic, and never went to doctors. Lesson learnt: if you feel you might have a heart attack, go to a bloody doctor. Funny how that works, you know. Then one case was half a yearish ago, I reckon. On a stretch of road to here that is followed by a 30 speed limit, 270-degree on-ramp. I saw a car ahead which was permanently on their brakes, at least according to their lights. For obvious reasons they weren't, because at times they were accelerating, and I doubt a breaker would drive, a driver would brake and accelerate at the same time. That was actually a case where I decided it was worth the speed limit, braking it. Where it was higher, I did not brake it by much, because that's already a bit dodgy, in my opinion. But in that 30 speed limit corner, I decided I'd actually test it to the limit, and I did double the speed limit. Good news is I did catch up with him. I did manage to tell him about their brake lights not working or being on chronically. Same again for another car which had no rear lights recently. Absolutely none. I'd strobed, flashed my high beams at them quite a lot, turned my lights off and on again, because from behind I just thought they hadn't had their lights on. Turns out they did. Just all their rear lights were malfunctioning, all both, you know. In the end of the day, that's a result because people don't check their cars regularly. And one brake light go, oh no, but if you don't check it, you don't know. So then the other brake light go, rear light, end light, and then you ain't got no rear lights. A separate topic, by the way, today's snacks is first off some shortbread fingers and maybe some other things later. These are self-made. And in case like that, due to paragraph 1 of the general rules of the road, first off, I believe I am allowed to break the speed limit, that is, because paragraph 1 is above paragraph 6, which handles speed limits. So, you know, I feel there is no danger there, and of course I don't speed like crazy. Well, I'd usually consider it crazy, but I keep in mind safety and being able to brake if something were to come out in front of the road, etc. And I guess that is a degree of double standard. Then again, as many times as I tell people their brake lights or tail lights are out, and they don't know yet, I have the high suspicion I am one of very few people, at least in this city, telling people if their brake lights are out. Because usually the only people who know, maybe 1 out of 30 or so, know it because their car tells them. Presumably because they've got a permanent continuity check running through the filament. Another thing, though, where I believe I may slip into double standard territory soon enough, and I will try to avoid it, is speeding in general. Yesterday on my way in to work, happened to be far side of town at this time because the client is there. I did actually notice myself going high single digits above the speed limit. Admittedly not with a low speed limit, but still high single digits above the speed limit, which is outside my personal tolerance. I'll try to prevent that, particularly by leaving more than on time, not just accounting for traffic. I mean, the time now is 11:38 in the AM. Oh yeah, I haven't even done that bit. It is Wednesday, the 4th of December, 2024. The time is 11:39 in the AM. I got to leave in like comfortably an hour 20, and then I got more than enough time. Then I got about double the time I should need to get there. But in the end of the day, I'd rather have a chill time driving than having to hurry, you know. And I mean, it's not like I've got much better to do. Otherwise, I'm just sitting there drinking tea. And I'm already doing that now, you know. Magic. With my lingo, in the past I've established I use a lot. And there was another one which was she, you know, I use a lot, you know. Apparently these days, at least in my German language, and I believe that might be true for the English language as well. I've started using a lot of surprise, which is basically me not being capable of sarcasm because I'm autistic. That is sarcasm. Because surprise does not mean it's a genuine surprise. It's one would expect it if one were more cynical. You know. And oddly enough, I've been using less of you know. Probably about the same amount of you know. That was you know, she. That's quite impressive, linguistically. It's funny how that works anyways. I'm currently in my work trousers, winter trousers. They are still my private ones because I just like workwear. It's handy with all the pockets. But I highly suspect if I am crawling around under and over desks, I may reduce my pocket load in future. That is yet to be determined. Today I will be taking my knee pads. My chief offered to bring some. And I said, I actually got some of those already. Might as well use them, you know. Otherwise I'll just dry rot. I did patch up these trousers the other week quite significantly in the crotch area. I actually managed to use cloth from another pair of the same trousers, and I used the reinforced pocket cloth. So hopefully these are good for at least the rest of this winter. Magic. Surprise. Yesterday I had a bit of an odd situation with the neighbours. I'd had a laminator delivered. I was not home because I was out working. It was delivered to the next door neighbour. When I came home, I saw their lights were still on. And it was before 10 in the PM, so before when it is supposed to be quiet. When I rang, they seemed rather confused. Well, they understood I was there for the package, but they didn't seem happy about it. When I tried asking about the time, I haven't talked with them much. Maybe either them having been groggy or language barrier or both, but I believe they may not have been comfortable with me being there 9:45. Don't know how I'll handle that in future. Probably just wait till the next day and pick it up around this time then, you know. Fuck. Now I'm doing it again, you know. That's not even a choice. It's horrible. Yesterday I did go shopping. By one of the shops that is open late on my way home. I got 10 litres of milk, a package of toast bread, and a donut. And that's all I got, I guess. Which is slightly off, but work, so I'm not in a position to complain. I'm just going to pause this to blow my nose. I'll be right back. There we go, I'm back. That wasn't long at all. For you, it was no time, in fact, whatsoever. Last week, I did spend Tuesday at the office for the company I now work for. Just starting with theory, because at the end of the day, I'm interested in getting going. The sooner I did that, the sooner I was getting going. And at the end of the year, due to that being the festive season, us being in a Christian culture, Christmas and New Year's, I have 4 days of holiday then, even though I am not entitled to them. Then again, I probably would have got those no matter what, but I just feel more comfortable having at least been somewhere for some of those days ahead of time. Then again, apparently unscheduled bonus holiday is not too uncommon. I'm hoping that's not going to be a monthly thing, but it may very well end up. We'll find out. Then last week I did manage to clean up some of my flat, I guess. Didn't do the bathroom and didn't do the desk, did everything else. Most of it's still presentable. I'm gonna work on at least getting the bathroom clean sometime soon. Tomorrow, trademarked. Don't do today what you can push off till tomorrow, you know. Really, I could be cleaning the bathroom right now, but here I am drinking tea and talking to myself and uploading it on the interwebs. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching us, by the way. It truly means the world to me. It's kind of funny, you know, but now I'm doing it even worse just because I acknowledged the fact that it was a pattern of my language use. Oh no. you know. I have, now we get to the show and tell bit of this here, haha. Might as well. I have, a while ago, I believe I've already mentioned that, tried to go and get an update on the car because it's got a recall 12 years after it's initially been bought by someone from Volkswagen. Surprise, haha. They cannot put the update on until I fix the wiring harness for the diesel particulate filter pressure differential sensor. It's just one connection. That is fine at the sensor, we get a signal there, but it does not arrive at the computer. I believe it's 3 or 4 segments of cables with connections in between. Likely it's the connections, but to get to them, I have to disassemble the front end, which means I ought to be prepared to also replace wires or whatever may be needed. So I've bought myself a selection of wires, particularly this one because it's yellow and blue, to be able to do that. And also some solder crimps, because, you know, really ought to be prepared. I got contact cleaner. I had considered getting myself spare pin crimps for those connectors, but I think that's beyond the scope. Because I know, in fact, the most exposed connector is fine with continuity. I've tested that much in the past. Because that is the one you can actually reach due to it being the most exposed. Plan is I'll actually do that sometime around Christmas when I'm down south with the family. It'll only take a day, less than, hopefully. I mean, it being cold outside is probably a good motivator to get it done, you know. I have gotten something which with past vehicles would have been more useful, I highly suspect. But I did get myself this one finally. It's sad it doesn't even have all the wiring diagrams with the pinouts for stuff. And I have a strong suspicion why, and it's because this is for 2003 and till 15 for all diesel engines, which is a lot of models, which means half the pages are just covering, oh yeah, this is that version, this is that version. In the past, where this company have gotten its reputation from, at least in my eyes, there would have been 1 or 2 engines you could get with the car, which means they could have gone more in depth. I believe we got one somewhere for Triumph Spitfire some years. You know, just among the things. But those didn't come with as many engines, particularly because this is what, 12 years of, I reckon it's 15 engines, 15 revisions of engines, etc. I mean, it's the 2.0 and the 2.5 and the 1.9 litre diesels. And then you got those, some with bi-turbo, some with four-wheel drive, etc., etc. It do got in it how to disassemble the front end though, because that's presumably the same on all of them. Don't know if it's worth the money, but I'll find out soon enough. I could have figured out to disassemble it myself, but this way I won't be missing any bolts and tugging on stuff to find the bolt. Really, they're screws, not bolts. Some of them are even self-tapping screws. I should be using that language correctly. Nah. Oh, it turns out the light just went off because it's the end of my alarm time for daylight. I got a primary hygiene requirement to cater to. I will probably also go for a cigarette and then I'll be back with the lights back. I'll see you around shortly. Yeah, and that, oddly enough, is probably the reason why this may be the current car I have, the van, maybe the newest car I'll ever have, or if I ever get a new car, it'll be one to last me a while, considering the move to electric vehicles. That is all on the condition that there is not any major leaps in technology anytime soon. Because, surprise, I need the range. Not for the city driving, but considering my job now, particularly once I get properly onboarded, and I am properly onboarded and I'm able to work by myself, also legally, which will be minimum half a year, more likely a year, so 2025, end of 2025, maybe 2026. At which point I'll be headed all over the country. So at that point the range is non-optional. Admittedly, it's my private vehicle, and yes, I would get paid for the time I'm spending halted loading, charging, but it's not in the spirit of it. In the end of the day, I also want to get kind of done. I want to be productive. I want to generate more profit than I cost, because that is the incentive of a good employee, I guess. One does not want to be an unattractive employee for an employer. And the best way to do so is by generating more cash than one cost. And of course, there is always these overheads. I mean, currently I am an overhead cost. The chief a lot of the time is an overhead cost because they're not able to examine as many devices as anyone else. Because they're also the tech support line for edge cases with any of the colleagues or me. So, and they do all the development for tools. Because currently, the way the company is fighting inflation is not by raising prices, interestingly enough. It's by increasing efficiency, which also has the added benefit of not just increasing efficiency with examinations per time, but also the quality of the examinations. Because one have to do fewer things, one don't have to replug one's probe from one socket to another. That's all going to be done with relay, which means better, as in the end of the day, evolving the process of making sure devices don't kill people. The current client is a big semi-governmental organisation. I believe I can say that much. That is not critical information. There is a lot of places in this city that applies to, surprise. It being the capital city of this country, of this federation. I was surprised to see how many devices they have per desk. Then again, it's because our definition of a device is a thing that handles more than 50 volts AC or DC, or 48 strictly speaking. 48 with our tolerances, 50 according to legislation. But that means if you have system movable socket rails, so a multi-socket with socket in the end to plug another one into, With those, it's allowed. They're made for it. With other multi-sockets, it's obviously not allowed to plug multi-sockets into multi-sockets. But even the cables in between them count as a device. So it's real easy to get up to a lot of devices if there's just 4 of those, because 4 of those with a fence problem, you have the cord at the end, but you don't have one at the other end. So that makes 8 devices just for multi-sockets. Then if you have 2 monitors, each of the monitors has at least 1 cable. Per desk, 2 monitors, that makes 4 monitors total. That's another 8 devices. Same with computers, etc. Then the desks raise and lower. Maybe they have a desk lamp, maybe they have a printer, maybe a copier. It's surprising how one easily get into double digits with a singular desk of electronic devices. But that also means we don't got to move so much between tests, so I'm quite happy about that, I guess. With cars, back to the previous subject, I have been looking into, realistically it won't happen next year, but still, you know, beyond then it may happen. It has the potential to happen. Volkswagen Golfs. So in America I think they're called Rabbits, I'm not sure. But they are quite good with fuel efficiency. Quite a lot of models you can get less than 4 litres of diesel per 100k on the Autobahn. Interstate driving. At which point I would actually be generating money for driving, because I'm getting compensated flat rate, which means, surprise, a 2.8 ton van is more or less zero once you're compensated. With a car like that, you'd actually make money. It'd probably take about a decade to pay itself off, including the maintenance and so on. And I'm far from having the money to spend on such a car, considering just getting it in the first place is between 5 and 10 grand. And then keeping it on the road over that time is probably another 5 to 10 grand. And insurance is another 5 to 10 grand for that time, you know, all before diesel. And potentially AdBlue with a vehicle like that. But it's an interesting thought experiment for window shopping nonetheless. I do a lot of window shopping for cars and houses and who knows what. I guess that means I've got hope in me. Could be worse. Funny how that works. While my mum and sis were here, they arrived last Thursday, left Saturday. I saw them Thursday and Friday. Went to the T-joint twice. That was a fun one. We also went shopping, so I got some new pants, which was way overdue. I'm really happy about having got these new pants, because that means I can now do my laundry on a bi-weekly basis again. Especially once I get more shirts. Currently I'm still doing the shirts twice a week, because this is the shirt I have, the long sleeve one, that I like wearing for work, but twice a week's good enough for that. Particularly considering I wear jackets outside and. But, you know, it's quite handy having backup pants. When I'm talking about pants, I'm not talking about the thing people see, I'm talking about the thing underneath. For any people who confuse the American with the English language. Underwear. With clearing up my place, I am kind of slacking. I got my diploma last Friday at uni, which I was at for the first time since the move, and I'm not likely to go there anytime soon, but yeah. I got the diploma. The only thing is, on the grade overview, they did manage to F up a bit, just sadly to not much surprise of mine. 4 courses I have had in my 7th semester are now in the 2nd semester, in which they were not even offered, which realistically don't matter. The problem is, somewhere down the line it could matter, because if someone ever looks into my diploma and, oh, that's your grade overview, oh, but no one else was in that course in that year because that course wasn't offered, then I'd have to explain myself, and I really just want them to do their job, but it might be expecting too much. Shortbread. In the past, I had recollections with uni, with, for example, 230-volt AC extension cords not being uniquely identifiable, which meant they were a potential future client of me in this new job now, or of the company I work for. But turns out the company that check them just don't bother checking cables, which, I mean, I ain't loyal, so, but it's dodgy AF, because if the insulation on a cable's bad, that can kill someone. If the earth within the cable is bad, you know, strand broken also, inside, that means all devices down the line of that ain't got a ground. Like, that'll kill people. Then again, best I can do is tell the people at uni, which I may eventually get around to, and we'll see. But it's one of the bigger companies doing this exam, and it seems they just don't give a shit. It's kind of sad. It just feels like a cash grab. Then again, one might argue, if one doesn't know the material, the subject matter, but you're checking all the cables. That's a huge cash grab. Then again, our rates are pretty cheap, so, and the cables are running 230 AC with the power to kill people. Admittedly, there is a power fault unit to be installed, particularly because this building, for example, is a new building. So it's supposed to, if there is a fault to ground, automatically trip. Problem is, if the ground wire is not given in the power supply cable, the power supply won't have a ground, which means that won't trip, even though it should with 30 milliamps. Because there's no continuity between that. The continuity is the human with the actual physical ground. This client also even have an IT system, which means there is no ground, but not exclusively. If they only had IT, I think we might not be able to test. IT being you have your incoming power, you have an isolation transformer. I got one in the hallway, but, well, a transformer, but I'm not going to get it because it's bloody heavy. Which means any electrical connections beforehand don't matter, and after that you do not have anything connected to ground, which means you need two bad insulations or human to touch, both alive and in neutral, to be able to kill themselves. But that also means you aren't going to find damages in insulation as easily, so you need permanent checks on those, which you can buy tools for machines. But apparently hospitals use it, and I like it as an idea, and I do wonder why we don't have that as a broader system. It's probably because any flaw anywhere could ground out the whole system and kill people. So, you know. Then again, the stationary non-movable objects, such as sockets, are not within the scope of my job. If I see something dodgy, I've got to report it. I mean, first off, to keep my burden clean, to not incriminate myself, ethically, morally, and legally. But beyond that, it's not the scope of our work. That's someone else's job. With the car, I have recently applied product named Rain X. Rain such as the downpour outside, X as the letter X-ray. There is a space in between, and it's bloody lovely. you just get this lotus effect on the windscreen, which means you barely need your windscreen wipers. That's really pleasant. Last Tuesday, I also managed to go to a place to get a crack in the windscreen fixed. It is still visible where it was, but there is no longer a crack there, so I guess that's good. Done the wiper blades and the application of that product after. I still got an anti-condensation product, same brand name. I got applied to the interior windows, but I'll get around to that eventually, you know. Currently, I'm leaving the house late enough in the day that I don't actually got to worry about such things, which I guess is comfy. And I mean, I can be here just afternoon. I just realised I didn't give you the time. The time now is noon. I didn't give you the time after the break, so beginning of the cut of this bit here was spot on noon. Magic. Another thing is, we got these trolleys, tool carts, whatever you might call them. They're more trolleys, I guess, for putting our test equipment on to move it around the office and so on of clients or other sites of clients. And it is up, we are given the option to construct our own and have the materials paid if we don't like the one we're provided. I've yet to be provided one because I'm new on the job and the chief hasn't gotten around to it. Small company after all. So this time I'm using the chief's, which is fine by me. I'm hella inefficient already anyways. I mean, within several hours of time, I'm currently doing as much as a colleague is doing within half an hour, maybe an hour, depending on their seniority, experience, etc. Which is a funny way of looking at it, but I'd hoped to reach a point of being productive enough by February of next year. Apparently I've made a good enough impression that the expectation from third parties is higher than that. Others reckon I should be able to get a decent amount of work done by the end of the week, which I guess is them having a lot of confidence in me, which I don't got. Then again, I got crappy self-esteem, you know. I still got shortbread as a snack, but I'm feeling as if I fancy something different. So I got these chocolates, which were given to me as a thank you for helping move some stuff by a dear friend. Post-inflation dear friend, pre-inflation they might have qualified for good friend even. Then again, I don't think I knew them pre-term inflation. Funny thing how that works, you know. Swiss chocolate surprise, so that's nice. Ooh. Nougat waffle heart. I like chocolates. Surprise. That's one design thing with chocolates like this. The legend of which chocolate is which is always on the back of the package. Which means either you stood there like this, trying to read it, or you just take the interior package out of the outside package and invert it. This way I can now lift the back out of the front. Yeah, actually, might as well show that. There's a video format after all. I can now lift the back out the front, have my legend and have my chocolates. The only thing is putting it back together might be a bit meh. Oh, it worked well enough. Oddly enough, on Monday, to get to the office for work, I actually driven well over 100k there and back. Because I did decide to take the Autobahn, because it's the quickest way according to navigation systems. And it worked out. It's just on the way there, surprise. That's what all the other people's navigation systems said as well, which is suboptimal. Who to funk? Hee funk. Fun language. I made a similar mistake yesterday, though I wouldn't call it a mistake because that was an unforeseeable bit, even by the navigation systems. Which is there was an accident on A100, the city interstate, city autobahn, Stadtautobahn, which caused somewhat of a traffic jam. And the magical thing is I was chill enough that I did not use my brake pedal for a solid 20 minutes straight. For I played with the gas a bit every now and then when it was quicker, and with the clutch when it was a bit slower, and managed to not come to a stop once. Which means, had there been bicycles, which there are not because they're not allowed on Kraftfahrtstraßen or Autobahns, they would have not been allowed to overtake me on the right. Which was an interesting thread on the German Rules of the Road subreddit just earlier. Because, surprise, that subreddit has both motorists and cyclists who feel intensely about their situations and about the other party. And it's kind of interesting because usually with these online communities, I mean, obviously it's still a bubble, but a lot of the time they are bubbles which particularly suit one perspective. In this case, it was two perspectives which are opposed to one another, or frequently thought of as opposed to one another, within the same bubble, which actually made quite an interesting discussion. Besides one person who went ad hominem, but, you know, what do you expect? What do you expect versus what do you hope for? If I'm spending more than 8 hours out, which today I may very well, considering I spend more than an hour driving to the clients and more than an hour driving back, I get extra compensation for lunch money, basically. I didn't do meal prep today, but I think I can probably whip something up to take along, which will cost significantly less, which means more money for me. And it's tax-free, that bit of the money, that is. With bank account shenanigans, I have switched banks now. I mean, I've had the other account for quite a while. Beforehand, I was with a German national bank that has a lot of region-based banks. Suboptimal though, because I could not put money in a bank here in Berlin. Not that there is money to put in banks anyways. Where do one get cash these days? But now I've switched to an exclusively online bank. It's quite comfy because I can say, give me a separate IBAN for whatever purpose I want it for, and I'll just use that IBAN for that. Admittedly, that do cost a £5 fees a month for having those features, but I was going to switch anyways at the end of this month. But just the other day, I got the offer to have 2 free trial months and switch to the regular rate after, which I'm not going to complain about because I was going to switch to the regular rate within 5 weeks from now, you know, so get an extra month for free. Sometimes I am astonished by the amount of tape I have in this place. Let me just grab a couple of handful for illustrative purposes. Yeah, this is a lot of tape. And not all of it is even used, but some of it is backup. I got a selection of tapes, is a fair way of putting it. I've been wondering about engineering a proper storage solution because this is 3-inch drain pipe, OD. And it coincidentally happens to fit perfectly over the interior of cores of bigger rolls of tape. Well, any regular size roll, really. And that makes quite practical aspect for engineering. The problem is you wouldn't be able to have more than 2 rolls of tape on a segment of pipe before you'd have to remove a roll of tape to access another. I might have to figure something out in the long run. I might be able to overlap that development with professional, because now I only got them on the phone. Bloody hell! For the job, we got stickers. They're called cookies in common language. They basically show when the exam was done, and those also come on rolls. And for my cart, once I do get around to building my own, assuming I do, I want that process optimized so I can just have a bit stick out and pull one off, you know. Funny how that works, really. Hard optimization. And I might even want a couple of drawers on it with some tools I don't frequently need, such as this here. It's just side cutters. I should not need them for the job. When I do, they're handy to have. And I'm confident the chief would be willing to pay for me to buy some on the company. But I already got these. I already got 5 other pairs over there because I inherited a bunch from my dad. There's no point in buying another pair, you know. So I'll probably end up using some private tools, which I definitely don't mind. Chief definitely don't mind. So as long as they work, you know. If they break on the job, I can buy another pair off of the job money and we'll be even. I'm fine with that. One thing I have wondered about with constructing my own trolley is obviously you want them to be handy to have a lot of things in, but you also want them to be tight, small, petite, to fit through tight places, and you don't want them to be too heavy so you can lift them upstairs and so on, because not all places are wheelchair accessible. The place we're currently in has an elevator, so that's perfectly fine, but not all places do. I think this might already be the 4th brew of tea. Hoo-hoo, magic. I guess that's another thing I do a lot, magic. Perfect dosage for curacao, just in my cooling can, because they're both pretty much exactly 250ml. My curacao has a bit more, but tea leaves take volume, so fair enough, you know. Another aspect that's interesting is sometimes I have yet to encounter it on the job, but I know it will happen, and I was told it would happen, and I was not surprised to be told it would happen. You encounter things which are likely to kill people that you cannot simply pick up and take away. In which case, cutting the power cord may be a viable thing, because you can just take the male end of the power cord away, and then it can't be plugged in, and it can't kill people. But oddly enough, that's something one have to consider, what to then do with the male end of the power cord, because that is potential to have just 3 unconnected wires plugged into the wall, which means optimally you don't even cut it, you just make it tamper evident on the end with defective stickers and so on, so it can't be used accidentally. Malicious is not within the scope of our work. We have to presume for people to want to live. If they don't, they can stick probes or forks or whatever into sockets and they will kill themselves. But forks are not made to be stuck into sockets, which means no employer has to guarantee if you stick a fork into a socket it won't hurt you. But they do have to for electronic devices, which is what we do. With the uni, my former uni, it's actually a surprise because within half an hour of me having been there on the property, I'd heard enough complaints, oddly enough, not due to my former position as student representative, just due to people I knew, that I knew they weren't doing too greatly in the eyes of the students. Yet when I talked to one of the organisers of the uni, they had no clue about it, and they've been there for weeks. Which makes me think they just don't want to listen, because half an hour of listening and I can tell what's wrong. If you can't tell after a few weeks, you're probably just not listening. Then again, they might not have the structure provided to be able to listen. In the end of the day, they are on the clock and on the job, you know. That's another thing about this job I got now. For now, because I'm, for all practical purposes, in training, I am on the clock when my chief is on location. Oddly enough, because they are the chief, they are self-employed. They are always on the clock, but they're not always on location. They do the research and development and so on for the testing equipment as well on the side, and bookkeeping, etc. But once I am no longer trainee status, I guess, there won't be a clock. I won't be on the clock. I'll just have my things to do. And the rough guideline of 200 devices a day or 1,000 a week, and assuming I'll manage that and I'll manage my appointments, all is fine, which is actually quite interesting. Because at that point I can still do more and just get bonuses. But I believe those are taxed, so that might not be in my interest. You know. Different subject. With music, I've been listening to way more jazz in the recent past. It's just very chill. Besides things like Coltrane's Jupiter, that's not too chill, but it's interesting nonetheless. I like it. I'm getting away from hip hop, which I don't mind. I mean, in the past, it's been 40-50% of my listening. And I'm hoping to reduce it to 30 just for the sake of divergence. I don't want to entirely replace it with jazz. I had jazz in before. I've been listening to more drift funk as well, which was something I hadn't listened to in the past whatsoever. It's kind of interesting, you know. I really want to get some classic in the rotation. Problem for me with that is music app wise, I use Apple Music for regular music, but for classical I'd have to use a separate app. Not for all. Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner, for example, you can get on the regular app and I have it in my rotation. But for the majority of classical I'd want to listen to, I'd want the separate app, which is not great because that's a new habit and I don't want to have to use two apps of music. I mean, the reason I switched from Spotify to Apple Music is so I can have my music you cannot stream on device just as well, because you can sync your Apple Music with CDs. I'm just going to get a CD. Hopefully I got it here. Yeah, I do. Haha, magical. Among my maps, the CD is the Tim Westwood UK Hip Hop 2002 compilation. The way I acquired this was over Discogs, marketplace for used albums of both vinyl, CD, tape, whatever you want. All, not both. And with Apple Music, you can just stick this in your computer, even Windows computers, and ingest it. Which is real handy, because you can have non-streamable music alongside your streamed music in the same playlist. Which is the reason what got me converted to Apple Music. Funnily enough. Completely different subject again. Sorry for the ADHD, I guess. I did manage with Citizens' Money. I still have some paperwork to hand in. I have notified them I'm now on a job before I started the job. They've given me an appointment for 9th of December. And I've cancelled said appointment because I'd probably be working. And even if not, I have better things to do. The joke is they managed to get through with all the bureaucracy after 2 months, or 1.5 months, at which point I no longer needed it. I mean, I still needed the money because I'm in debt with my mum and my sister. Now I'm also in debt with them because I'm spending the money they give me for December because paycheck ain't come until the end of the month. You know, so I'll have to pay them back in rates, but it'll work out. But I have a hard time believing that this saved the government potential money, all the bureaucracy. I mean, the bureaucratic checks are there to prevent fraud and so on, but I would be highly surprised if they didn't just do a thing with, if you want more than a quarter year within a year of unemployment money, you have to go through all the checks and so on, make sure you're actually entitled, but if not, we'll just give it to you. Would probably end up saving money. Then again, Germany is not optimized for saving money. It's optimized for workforce employed per work to be done, in which case it's highly efficient. It's a fun way of thinking of German efficiency. Then again, I am inherently biased because I don't know any other efficiency because I've only lived in this country. I hear Japan is worse. Funny how that works. Yeah, I think that's actually it for now. I guess I hope to diversify my views on German efficiency eventually. I hope you have a divergent plethora of views of efficiency yourself. Thank you very much for watching, truly means the world to me. I'll see you around. Cheerio.